Well, thank you for that introduction, Danella, and welcome everyone to Recovery Messaging. My name is Tracy Lee, and I am a peer coach and a trainer for TPOR, or the Purpose of Recovery. But most importantly, I am a person in long-term recovery. And for me, that means 24 years of freedom and choice. I'm free from needing to use any drug or alcohol to work through life's challenges. And since 1997, my choices have transformed my life from addiction and homelessness, shame, domestic violence, to a life of meaning, connections, meaningful, powerful relationships, and purpose. Today, I am the mother, wife, daughter, aunt, sister, and employee that I think I was intended to be. And because of my recovery, I am privileged to be here with all of you today. And I'm privileged to be sharing recovery messaging with you because it is so important. Before we go further, I want to assure you that your self-care is number one. So at any time during this presentation, feel free to get up and take care of yourself. But as much as possible, let's keep our cameras on so that I can see that you're engaged and you're here with me. Make use of the chat to capture any comments. But rest assured, you will have an opportunity to share your thoughts, your feelings, and your stories when we do numerous breakout groups throughout our hour and a half together. So I'd like to start with this quote. Words matter, and the right words matter most of all. In the end, they are all that remain of us. I chose this quote because it reminds us of how powerful our words are, and it is especially true when we're speaking about substance use disorder. And we will get into all of that as we work together during this next hour and a half. Now, I'd like everyone to stop, get comfortable, take a big deep breath with me, and breathe out. Maybe roll your head and shoulders about so that you can get relaxed and be present. I want you to open your hearts and set some intention about your time with me here today. I know that my intention is to be fully present with you and to make this a safe space for you to share your stories and to connect with each other and to learn about how to speak about recovery, whether you are a person in recovery or an ally or a friend or family of someone in recovery. This topic matters to all of us. It will help us to heal the stigma of substance use disorder and carry a message of hope so that everyone who needs it can experience recovery. Let's get started. I'd like to call your attention to the workbook that was sent out. And if you don't have it, please check the chat right now. We have placed a link so that you could download the workbook. And if that is not an option for you, if it's not accessible, just grab a pen and a piece of paper and you will be fine. Open your workbook for those who have it to page 1 and take a look at our roadmap for today, starting with learning objectives. So by the end of this session, all I hope for all of us is that we understand why recovery messaging is so important, that we explore key components of what goes in a recovery message. We have a time to prepare a brief message and get an opportunity to share our message with each other in a safe environment. I would like to thank Faces and Voices of Recovery, as well as the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, because both of these organizations have helped bring this material to you today. They have been sharing recovery messaging and the importance of the language that we use for at least 15 to 20 years that I know of, and I am eager to share the highest highlights of that with you today. Here's a roadmap. I've divided your workbook into 5 sections. What is a message? Language is important. What's in a message? Prepare your message, and then let's practice and debrief. So there's also some references included at the end for further research that you can refer to. So we will move through these 5 sections. Once we learn what a message is and why our language is important and what goes in a message, we will have some time to prepare a very brief message and then practice in a breakout room with a partner for just a few minutes. Now, if you're freaking out right now about that practicing part, please know that you will not be put on the spot and you will not be forced to do this. You can just listen to your partner and provide feedback if that's more comfortable for you. Or you can use the practice time in any way that's useful for you. I want to say something right now to those of you who are part of a 12-step group. Some of what I will be sharing might conflict with what you've learned in 12-step meetings about language. Please know that this information is intended to be used outside of any 12-step meeting. And I am not attempting to change the language of our 12-step groups that are so important to recovery. So with that said, are you ready? Let's get started by reflecting on the groups that you are part of. Who do you talk regularly to and who do you connect with? So we're going to start with that activity. There's a place in your workbook on page 2, and it just asks you to reflect for a moment. What are 3 most important groups that you belong to and why? Please take just a few minutes to think about that. And as an example, for me, it would be my family. It would be TPOR, or the Purpose of Recovery, the Orange County Recovery Collaborative, CCAP. Those are some of my important groups. Who are yours? Okay, now that you've all had a few minutes to think about that, I'm going to put you in breakout rooms with a partner. And what I would like you to do is introduce yourself, your name, your relationship to recovery. So are you a person in recovery? Are you a friend or family member or an ally of someone in recovery? Maybe you work in the field of recovery. So your name, your relationship to recovery, and your motivation for attending this training. Please share that with your partner, as well as, of course, those 3 most important groups that you belong to and why. You'll have about 5 minutes for this activity. So Danella, could you break us out into breakout rooms? Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a moment to share with each other and connect. So if you could, please put in the chat some of the groups that you belong to and some of your motivations for attending, and I will share. And if anyone would like to speak out loud, just raise your virtual hand and we will recognize you. So I'm seeing some of the groups. It looks like 12-step meetings, family, of course, church, Bible study, a book club. So clearly we all belong to a variety of groups, and I'm seeing some motivations for attending. Learn what recovery messaging is, learn how to support youth in recovery where I work, learn about recovery language. So these are all things that we will be learning today. I think you'll walk away with some real tools when you leave here. So this exercise that we did served several purposes. I wanted you to connect to someone you might not normally talk to and see the value of a quick message. I also wanted you to get comfortable working in pairs because we'll be doing that a couple more times today. And I wanted to remind you of the groups that you do belong to. These are opportunities to share with these folks what you learn here today. So let's explore what is a message. Here's a definition of a message. It's a significant point. an exchange of information using words that you want your listener to hear. And so a recovery message, when we talk about a recovery message, we're specifically talking about the words and the language that we want to share so that our listener will hear our message about substance use disorder. And I want to share a quote with you. This is from someone named William White. If you don't know this man, he has been instrumental in carrying the message of hope for all of us. He is a prolific writer with over 400 articles and speeches and reports and books, including Slaying the Draken. His papers on recovery advocacy have been widely read, and he is considered a leader in the recovery movement. So here's the quote. Many of us have carried a message of hope on a one-to-one basis. The new recovery movement calls for us to carry that message of hope to whole communities and the whole culture. It is time we stepped forward to shape this history with our stories, our time, and our talents. And that is what we're going to be doing today. And for those of you who don't know, there is a recovery movement happening. It involves all of us in recovery or who are working in the field of recovery, our family members, our allies. And it involves all of us putting a face and voice on recovery, speaking out and speaking up about the fact that recovery is real. It is the expectation, and it is a worthy investment of our time, our energy, and our money. And if we're all speaking with a cohesive language, then we are very likely to get our message across. So, why does messaging matter? For years, people with substance use disorder were primarily, messages about people with substance use disorder were primarily focused on the fallout, on relapses, on the mess of our substance use. Rarely did we hear about the miracle of sustained recovery in the media. So today, our recovery messaging competes with those harmful narratives. Typically, primarily, the messages I've heard, and maybe you too, has been about the fallout, about the relapses, about the mess that we create. Rarely did we hear, especially in the media, about the miracle of sustained recovery that many of us know is absolutely the truth. So today, our recovery messages, they compete with these harmful historical narratives. Dominant, harmful historical narratives have what's been influencing people's attitudes, and not just attitudes. It's been influencing harmful policies that discriminate. The reality of our recovery is just not known by key stakeholders that are making decisions, making policy, making programs about us without us. And so, despite some major wins, and we've had them, make no mistake, from the recovery community in recent years, we can still see the effects about the lack of understanding about recovery in our jails, in our prisons, in the obituaries. And this has perpetuated stigma. Stigma is the mark of disgrace. If you are a person in recovery, I would venture to say you have felt that mark of disgrace. And it is time we've changed it. So what's the solution? It is to build this strong national recovery movement at every level, local, state, national, and end that stigma. It's about putting a face and voice with the right words in a cohesive message to change attitudes and to heal misconceptions, which will end discrimination. And we will advocate to change those harmful policies and promote the right resources so everyone can recover. Are you hearing me? Because it's time. And the language we use, it's what's so important when we do this. So I'm now on page 5, yet another quote from William White. Words have power. Maybe you've heard that before. Words have immense power to heal or wound. The right words catalyze personal transformation and offer invitations to citizenship and community service. The wrong words stigmatize and disempower. And I will go further. I'm going to tell you that words have energy, and it's either positive or negative. So in this next exercise, I really want you to take a moment and think about the words that you have heard used to describe us, to describe people with substance use disorder. So what words have you used? And just take a minute. What words have you used to describe people with substance use disorder? Junkie, addict, loser, abuser. Take a minute. And then I'm gonna ask that you share. As you get done thinking, I'd like you to start sharing in the chat some of the words that you've heard. Oh, Wendy, thank you. Thief. By the way, as I say these, I want you to feel the energy of my words. Thief, dope fiend, dual addicted, addict, stoner, manipulator, careless, greedy, drug addict, lost. Those people. Yeah, okay. So, wow, I'm covered with God chills right now, guys. Because these are the words that have been used to describe us. What legislator or politician is going to want to help a loser, a nut job, a crackhead, a pothead, a burnout, a druggie, a mooch? Okay? Who? When we feel the energy of those words, the words that have been used to describe us, even we ourselves have used these words to describe us. What that does is it promotes stigma. It promotes the mark of disgrace. Remember, words can encourage, support, enlighten, and unify, or they can discourage, misinform, shame us, embarrass us. So think about your words from this moment on as we share the importance of recovery messaging. Now, in your workbooks on page 6, I shared some research with you. There has been extensive research done on what we call the science of recovery language. The results of this research are conclusive, and this has been going on since that I know of, at least 2004. And you can hear just from the words we all shared with each other, the language we've been using to describe us has hurt us. It has hurt us. It has led to explicit discrimination in the medical community, at the legislative level, and it has impeded recovery. And I know none of us here wants that. For example, what they found was using the word abuse or abuser, just as an example, implies willful misconduct. And it has been shown to increase stigma and reduce quality of care. Wow. Also, the idea of clean and dirty have to go. A doctor would never tell a patient suffering from diabetes that his blood test was dirty with glucose. So I want you to think about your words. Do your words, wherever you're using them, decrease support? Do they increase fear? Do they increase discrimination and stigma? Or are the words you're choosing shattering stigma, increasing awareness, increasing understanding and support and education and access to recovery? That's what the rest of this is about today. So I hope you're all with me here thinking about this. In your workbooks, I've provided you just to say this, not that, just to give you some ideas about words that we could easily choose to say instead of what we've been saying. So for example, instead of an addict, junkie, or druggie, all of which I know we've heard said, oh, someone just said I was referred to dumb shit. Wow. Yeah. So we're going to change all that. Instead of addict, junkie, druggie, or dumb shit, we are going to say a person with substance use disorder, a person living in recovery instead of an ex-addict, a person arrested for a drug violation instead of suffering from addiction. He just is choosing not to participate at this point rather than a non-compliant, not willing. You can read some of these for yourself. And I have an exercise to get you to really think about words that you could say, this, not that. So, by the way, there's even more examples in your workbook. But what I want you to do now, I'm going to pair you up. Don't freak out about the length of this worksheet. I just want you to pick 2 or 3 that you've heard out in the world and you could change your words. I want you to use your creative thinking and your resources in your handbook to change that traditional old language to recovery-oriented language in your workbook on page 9. Are you ready? I'm going to pair you up. Remember, just pick 2 or 3. Okay, and I'm going to pull you back in about 3 or 4 minutes.